All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday from wherever you're joining us. We were just talking about it being a little bit cold and snowy here on the East Coast. No, well, more the Northeast, I guess. So if you've got snow and it's chilly, we hope you're staying warm. But I know there's many of you, and I know like last year at our leadership conference, it was the first time some of our members have ever even seen snow. So if you're not having snow, we'll try to save some for you. But welcome to Voices of NASFAA here on LinkedIn. My name is Tim Maggio, and I'm so excited for you all to join us today. We have 29,000 voices across our NASFAA membership, and Voices of NASFAA, it's become an opportunity where we get to share those voices and have one-on-one conversations with folks from across our field to learn, engage, and connect with each other. Each of our members, each of our community members has their own unique voice and journey throughout this profession, and Voices of NASFAA has become an opportunity for us to listen and learn from those voices. So I'm super excited about the voice that we have today. I've been wanting him to come on Voices of NASFAA since I got to hear him speak at the EASFAA annual conference earlier this year. So I'm so glad that Ken Ferreira has agreed to join us from the EASFAA region. He is the Assistant Vice President for Student Financial Services at Suffolk University in Boston, Massachusetts. Ken, if you look at his LinkedIn profile, has worked at a couple different institutions over the years and has a wide variety of experience. And currently, as I've mentioned, he's the EASFAA president. And if you're a part of EASFAA, you've got to see a lot of his video updates these years about what the board is doing and what EASFAA is doing. And I've been watching him too, because I mean, it seems like Ken is really committed to transparency and making sure that EASFAA members really understand what's going on in their region, which has been really, really cool to watch. So, Ken, I know we chatted a little bit about the weather, but how are you doing today? How's everything going on your end?
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me. Things are good. Things are good. I'm glad it's Friday.
Yes, I'm glad it's Friday as well. So, let's kick things off, Ken, a little bit. What are you comfortable with sharing with us? Anything personal or professional?
So I've been in financial aid my entire adult life. I started off as a work study student at the age of 19 at my alma mater, which was Notre Dame College in Manchester, New Hampshire. And from there went into a professional career where I have enjoyed working with students from several institutions and serving families again my entire adult life.
Awesome, awesome. So, the one thing that I was kind of curious about to talk to, and I've had a couple regional presidents on the show, but we've really never dived into what it's like being a regional president. And I thought that you might be a good person to start that kind of conversation with. So when talking about being ISFA president, how'd you get there? When you were a new professional in aid, did you have aspirations of becoming an ISFA president one day, or did it just kind of happen over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So being East for president at this point in my life, I am confident will be one of the highlights of my career. So I turned 50 in June. And so I was East for president. I took the gavel in May, so just before my 50th birthday. But ISFA I've been involved with since I was in my mid 20s. So
Okay.
very early on in my career, I volunteered for EASFA back then had a newsletter where I worked on the committee and then the chair wasn't able to fulfill the chair role. And Bob Shorb, over 25 years ago, asked me to, or about 25 years ago, asked me to be his newsletter chair, and he got me on council. And I've been newsletter chair. I was training chair. And then my wife and I got married and we had the kids and I told her that I promised I would stay more local and not, do the regional travel. And so I stepped back a little bit and got heavily involved in my state association. I spent the majority of my career in New Hampshire and served over the span of 19 years, I served 4 terms as president of NASFAA.
Okay.
And then as the kids got older, I sort of dipped my toe back into EASFA, right? So regional travel, was more, it was easier on my wife and on my family. And So then I held elected office for the second time. So, before the kids were born, I was EASFA secretary early on. Then I was vice president. I was New Hampshire state rep. And over that 25-year period, so very early, so you have like this, early part of my involvement with EASFA. Then while I was a member, I took sort of a break in the middle. So like from, let's say, 2008 to maybe 2017, somewhere in that vicinity where my kids were born and growing. Um, I was approached to throw my name in and run for East for president back then. Actually, I was approached three times. And I declined all three times, Tim, because I didn't feel like I was ready.
Okay.
Um, and and I hadn't been a state president yet. And I needed that for myself. I needed to figure out how to lead a state association before I felt ready enough to lead a regional association, especially a region the size of EASFA. And so I declined. I respectfully declined, but I stayed, a member. I stayed involved. I do trainings and so on. And then I was nominated again in I believe it was 2022, and I ran for president. So they twisted my arm, and I said, "Yep, I'll do it this time." I kind of feel ready, and I lost. um, but I lost to someone who would become a really close colleague and friend, and that is to Taylor Cruder. She's at Mount Holyoke College, or Mount Holyoke in Massachusetts, and so if I was going to lose to somebody, losing to her, I have no problem with. And so then I figured, well, the universe sent me a sign. I had put off running for East for president for years, and then ran and lost. And so, when the universe sends you a sign, don't do it.
Okay.
But then I was approached another time, and I had served as the government relations chair during Taylor's year as president-elect. And and I was told, Ken, just give it one more shot, see how this works. And I um, I ran and I won. And right after I won, so in December of 2023,
Hmm.
I was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And I thought, wow. So I won the election. I was working in New Hampshire at the time. There've only been three East for presidents from New Hampshire. One hadn't been president in over 20 years. Um, and I thought to myself, I don't know whether or not I'm going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And there are moments in your life, Tim, where things come into really clear vision, right? And this was one of them for me. Um, so when I won, and shortly after, we're talking days, maybe a week, that I had my diagnosis, I reached out to EASFA past president Ann McDermott, who chairs as part of the past president's role the
Hmm.
nominations and elections committee, and I told her. I said, I don't know what, there was a lot of uncertainty in my life. I knew I needed surgery. I didn't know whether or not I needed chemotherapy or radiation or, um, you know, um, clinical drug trials. I really didn't know the trajectory of the
Or-
disease and what I need. I was working with several doctors and trying to put together a medical team. And I said to Anne, Anne, I am honored to have won, but I will respectfully step aside if ISFA thinks that's the right thing to do. And Anne cut me off and said, absolutely not, Ken. Absolutely not. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. I'd like you to have a conversation with Taylor. She said, but ISFA will stand behind you 1000%, and we will figure this out. You were elected, and we'll figure this out. And Taylor said that not only would she support me in my year as president-elect, she would support me in my year as president. she would support me beyond my year as president, and that together we'd have this. Um, and so, those moments of clarity
Yeah.
that a cancer diagnosis brings to your life um, are amplified by the way people treat you and make you feel.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, without question, I will never, ever forget how wonderful the two of them were during that period, and beyond. Anne's on my council, so she's, conference co-chair, and is a colleague and a friend. And the good news is that I did not need radiation, I did not need chemotherapy, I did not need clinical drug trials. I had surgery, they removed a malignant tumor. I've made a full recovery. I'm closely monitored.
Congratulations.
And I am enjoying thoroughly being East for president for the last 7 months.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And, the thing that really I'm sitting with right now is I think, and I don't know if this is more for new professionals, but I think this could happen to anybody at any stage in their career, is they look at people in these ISFA president roles and things, and I think sometimes we forget about the human aspect of the people who fill these roles.
Mhm.
And to listen to your story right now and see the key points in which you had life events kind of come together with career events, and you had to make really pointed decisions when your kids were born,
Mhm.
with this cancer diagnosis, and then all of the other um, things that kind of happened and transpired throughout those years. So one, thank you for showing that humanity and being vulnerable with everyone here. But I guess I have a little bit of a bat or follow-up question with this is when these I think there's a lot of people who out there who probably struggle with balancing those career and personal decisions.
Mhm.
How do you come to those, or how do you get to a place where you know what decision to make, when thinking about your kids and all the other kind of life's challenges that you've faced?
So what I can say about the most recent one is, I mean, honestly, I think that it takes time and life experience. But so having gone through surgery, having gone through the uncertain time of that, having won the EASFAA election with a plan. I mean, I had a plan that I wanted to execute as EASFAA president. I'm doing that now. I mean, this has been a 25-year endeavor for me, this association. I've been involved, since very early in my career, as I mentioned. But what I've learned also from having a cancer diagnosis is that the universe has ways of making a hyper type A task-driven person like me realize that not everything is going to go according to plan, right? So I'll give you the next example. So I had surgery in February of 2024, assumed the president-elect role in May of 2024. And in my head, I had decided that professionally, I would probably make a move in May or June, like the summer of 2026, right? Professionally. And there were lots of reasons behind that. I enjoyed a really close and mentoring type relationship with my former boss. I served in her cabinet. I wore two hats for a number of years as the vice president for institutional planning and effectiveness, as well as student financial services at my previous employer. And in my head, I said, okay. And she was retiring. And in my head, I said, you know what? I'm gonna look for another position, another role in or June of 2026. I'll finish out East for president. I'll rotate into the past president's role, and then I'll look for another opportunity.
Mhm.
Not that I was being forced out or under contract, but in my head, that was sort of like my master plan.
Sure.
And then a colleague told me about the position that was open at Suffolk. And I'd like to think that I'm at a point in my career where the student population and the institution that I work for, I'm pretty selective. I want to work with students that were like the student I was 100 years ago, that are, sort of the need, the high need or percentage of high need student that might need to work part-time in order to pay tuition, a considerable percentage of the students who are Pell eligible. And so when the opportunity at Suffolk opened, it opened in 2024.
Mhm.
And I sought that position a year ago, let's say like October-ish. Um, and it was affirmation that my master plan of 2026 wasn't necessarily up to me, just like it wasn't up to me to get a cancer diagnosis when I finally won the East for presidency after being asked to run, I think, 5 times. And
Yeah.
so the balance is to understand that professionally, I think I've needed to be nimble.
Okay.
I've I've needed to garner the support of a team and an employer that sees the value in this work, and I am eternally grateful for their support. But that the game plan needs to have enough room to shift and change, because what is your timeline may not be the timeline of when it's meant to happen. I was
Right.
not meant to win in 2022. I was meant to win in 2023 for the 2024, East for president-elect year. I was not meant to find a new job in 2026. I was meant to find that in 2024,
Yeah.
and it all sort of fell into place. Um, and um, and I'm happy with the way that it's worked out.
Yeah, you kind of got to be a little bit open to how life unfolds, it
It
sounds
is,
like.
yeah, yeah.
So we've dived a little. So this is a question that I asked to all of our guests, and we've dived into some stuff. So if this is what you were going to talk about for this question, we can move on. But part of Voices has really been kind of learning about folks, who they are outside of their institutions, whether that's an identity or life experience that they have that informs the work they do. So when thinking about an identity or life experience, is there anything else out there that we haven't discussed that really kind of sticks in your mind when you're working in a financial aid capacity?
Yeah, I mean, so financial aid is what I do. It's not who I am. It's
Mhm.
a big part of me, and it's a big part of my life. But I have other interests, and so I'd like to think that if people were to ask, what do you know about me? I am a devoted husband. I'm a devoted son. I'm a devoted father. I'm a dog dad. I love to kayak, and we have a little camp on a lake in the Monadnock region in New Hampshire that my wife and I bought before the kids were born. And we call it the Shaky Shack because there isn't a level surface in it. But the views are beautiful, and we have dreams for it someday to level it and maybe build a retirement place there for us. But I also have volunteered for the last 20 years for a small nonprofit that serves people with disabilities and acquired brain disorders. My sister is cognitively disabled, so she has Angelman syndrome, which is a genetic mutation in one of her chromosomes that essentially makes her socially, emotionally, and cognitively around the age of 3. I've advocated for her and people like her my entire adult life, and so that stuff is a big part of my life. And I've got my plants and my perennials, and I may or may not have an unhealthy obsession with my lawn. And the competition that I have with my neighbor that lives across the
I
street.
love that.
So, I mean, financial aid, again, it's a very big part of what I do, but there's other stuff that make me tick too.
Yeah, and that's a really big part of why we've started this, is we want people to remember that our financial aid community, we're people outside of work too. So I love hearing about that, and I would love to see a picture of your lawn at some point. I'm kind
Oh,
of
I'll send it to
imagining
you. I'll send
I'm
it to you.
imagining like a golf turf kind of
Uh-huh.
place.
Yeah, it's like a blanket.
So Ken, the next thing I was kind of thinking about asking you, and I don't think I've asked this of a guest before, but when I was looking at your career and I was like kind of stalking, I guess, your LinkedIn profile a little bit, I was looking at like the various roles that you've had over the years, and I was thinking about the audience that we might have that will come to this show today. And I was kind of thinking, I think for a lot of our newer or mid-level professionals, they might think of director of financial aid as like the end game. And I saw that like at a previous institution, I think you were like associate VP, and then I think VP, like you had like a dual role. And
Hmm.
then now you're currently an assistant vice president.
Hmm.
And I don't know, like what does that mean for you? Is that the same as a director of financial aid and it's just a different title, or is it an elevated role? Like, can you help demystify that for people?
Sure. So the AVP role at Suffolk, where I get to work with, just this incredible team. They are a seasoned, wonderful staff. I really hit the lottery. I left a team that I thought was once in a lifetime, and they absolutely were. And I built that team. But the team that I've joined, they are excellent. They're rock stars. I oversee two directors. I also oversee a manager that oversees our one stop, which is we call it the RAM Registration and Financial Services Center, where it's one stop for registration, financial aid, and student account services. And so while I don't oversee student accounts and the registrar, the one stop does report up to me. And so the AVP role is an elevated role. It is not at the director level. And while I am a guest, for instance, on certain board committees, or meet with what they call an expanded senior staff. I am not part of the president's cabinet. I'm a guest essentially when senior staff meets and is expanded,
Hmm.
and enjoy collaborating with other peers and colleagues who are in that same sort of level, as well as what is essentially the president's senior leadership team. At my prior institution, as you mentioned, I mean, I had, God, I don't know, I think I had like seven titles. So the advancement that I saw at my prior institution in many ways was indicative of a quest on my part where the other duties as assigned grew.
Okay.
And I think I was fortunate enough to work for for um, mentors who understood that I was able to be tapped into more than just financial aid.
Mm.
While financial aid remained my primary function, I got to do things like, launch a student success initiative, work tirelessly on a retention initiative that shored up first-time full-time retention from an all-time low of 59% when we were in crisis mode at that time, to when I left, it was 75%. And so, and collaborate and bring people together, craft the university's last two strategic plans,
Wow.
and sort of garner a skill set that kept my thirst for doing some other stuff outside of aid, to keep me interested.
Nice. So, for directors out there who maybe are thinking about those type of moves, like I know you said you had like some mentors who kind of tapped you and knew, was there active things that you had to do to kind of signal that you were ready for those opportunities, or you like kind of built your way into that? Like, how would a director out there who might be kind of feeling like they're siloed or maybe they're feeling like limited in their career growth, maybe try to explore those at their institution from your perspective?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about relationships. I think a
Okay.
lot of it is about so for me it's been about partnering, right? And so, the president that I worked under for 8 years at my previous institution, I worked with as provost for 8 years. And
Mm,
she and I were partners. We were strategic partners on aid initiatives where I got to showcase my skills for her, and we were able to do some really, really cool things together with scholarships and for academics and modeling different scenarios to help impact class recruitment and retention. And then as her career trajectory moved into the presidency. Mine, sort of shifted onto the senior staff level. She asked me to be part of her cabinet. And I am immensely proud of the work that I was able to do with her and for her, and the service that I was able to offer a historic administration like that. In my new role, I have reached out to my counterparts where it's almost as simple as we're trying to build bridges by meeting monthly and getting our staffs together monthly. I pulled one of them. I have an open position in my office. I pulled one of them for a search committee, and it's forming those partnerships and those relationships so that people understand what your skills are and
yeah.
you understand what their skills are, and those skills complement each other in ways that allow your career to move in a direction that may not be what you had planned, but happens in many ways because of those relationships that you're forging.
Yeah, and I think the thing that you just like hit on home for me was, something I hear it from folks sometimes is that financial aid folks aren't good at promoting themselves a lot of times to get these type of opportunities. But I think the way that you framed it would probably work for our community of like it's relationship building so that people can see your stuff. But if we're always being in the background, passive and hoping somebody's going to notice us, I don't know that that's going to happen. It sounds like you were able to kind of showcase yourself through relationship building, which people might be more comfortable with rather than like kind of shouting from the rooftops how great we are. Because I think that some people are like, I don't want to do that. I don't want the limelight. It,
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the relationship building has never been in an effort to advance myself. It's that I don't work well in a silo. I work better when there is a broader coalition.
mm,
And that it's just how I operate. I think I have four working groups in my staff on strategic initiatives that we developed at a retreat this past spring. And it's to bring people together. It's to work on those initiatives. It's to form those coalitions because I think that that's how the best work gets done. To be honest with you, that's how I lead the EASFAA Council. We bring together inside and outside the organization coalitions of folks to try and bring the new strategic plan that we wrote in the last year to life.
that's awesome. It really just sounds like, you know, I don't know that I can take credit for coining this term, but it's something that I use a lot in presentations is there's this persona of community led leadership style where like you
Mhm.
lead through community, and that
Mhm.
sounds like you really embody that as like leading via like community and bringing people together. So that's really great to hear about. So I do see we're getting kind of close to time. So I have one more question for you, but before I get to that, we did have people who said hi to you, so I just want to bring them into the conversation.
Oh,
We've got
nice.
Michelle from Suffolk, who's one of your associate directors who's out there watching. We
Hi,
got
Michelle.
Julia
Hi,
Giacomo,
Julia. Who?
Giacomo,
Oh, yep, yep, that's Julia.
and then Bron Garrison from UC San Diego. We
Oh,
got
hey,
Mika
everyone.
Lim out there, Heather Boutel, Nick Pruitt, Mike Bennett, who, when we were talking, he said, "We make plans and God laughs."
Yeah, yeah. Mike
And
Bennett. So I'm going to give a shout out to Mike Bennett because if he's in here, he needs to hear this. I was a financial aid counselor at the Massachusetts Financial Aid Conference in Cape Cod when he gave his EASFA update and his passionate address to get involved in EASFA. And it's because of him that I signed up for the newsletter committee. Bob Shore may have given me a seat at the table, and so did Chris Zuzak and countless others, over the years. Susie Allen, Susan Howard. I mean, I can name all of these EASFA presidents that I served with, but Mike was the inspiration. I sat in that audience and heard him speak, and I said, "Wow, I need to get involved." And
yeah,
look at us now.
he is a powerful man, and
He
like
is.
And I mean, I just to echo that, he sent me a personally handwritten note a few weeks ago, and it just touched my heart. So I can totally understand and relate to what you're saying about him.
Yep, yep.
But before we end this, Ken, there's been so much you've shared today that's been powerful. But before we end, is there anything else that you want to share with our community? Any words of wisdom, things that you think are just important while we have this platform here together?
Sure. So one of the things that I was thinking about is, the day-to-day grind, right? It can be exhausting, right? It really can. But what I try to remind my staff is what I remind myself when that grind starts to grind at me, right? Is I still believe, just like I did when I was 22, right? So 28 years ago, just like I did all those years ago, I still believe that this is one of the most noble helping professions of our time because without financial aid, countless students couldn't realize their dreams of a college education. And I have been committed to this work my entire adult life. Remind yourself that what we do matters. It has value. It's important. It's critical to our society, and it's such good work. Believe in it. I still do. I think I will for the rest of my life.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ken. So Ken, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I know we've got a lot of EASFAA people out there, so I'll just give a little shout out that EASFAA is coming up in what is it, May 18th
It's
to
in May.
20th?
It's in May in Philadelphia,
All right.
Pennsylvania. 60th anniversary.
So yeah,
So,
come out, show up. It should be a good time. If you've had fun listening to Ken here, I'm sure he'll be speaking there again, so you can hear him as well again. But again, Ken, thank you so much. I've learned a lot from talking with you today, and I know that the folks out there listening to have. So that's all we have for today's episode for Voices of NASFAA. Next month, we'll be back for the new year with Sarah Freestone from Iowa, and we're super excited to have her